Hello, I'm Rick, the Fat Man GM. I am your GM, your game master for the day. I have 40 years of experience. I began playing when I was 12 years old, and my experience runs from old Dungeons and Dragons through Star Wars and Battletech, Shadowrun, and a slew of others. It's always been my philosophy that role-playing games and tabletop board games, gaming as a social medium is a great way for all walks of life to come together and enjoy camaraderie and exploring and stepping out of our comfort zone, if you will. So, this is your place at the table.
Come on, my friends. This is fastest Star Trek role-playing game, circa late 80s, early 90s. This particular installment is the adventure manual or adventure module or game campaign book, however you want to look at it, called the Triangle campaign, obviously. I say 1985, going by the trademark stamp on the front of this, which would have been the year I graduated from high school. From William John Wheeler, Peter L. Rice, Marcus Malkins, Todd Marsh, various individuals. Okay. So, our introduction is a role-playing campaign is a series of adventure scenarios that occur in a fictional setting common to all. This setting, called by many the campaign world, acts as a framework that structures the adventures, giving them visible ties to one another. The more detailed the campaign world, the more believable the adventure. Detail the campaign world. That's pretty much telling us what we all know. A few game masters have time to construct a detailed campaign world of their own. For a game master, must not only create the physical setting for the campaign, but also design the master plots to act in that setting. The game master must construct the major controversies and conflicts, the history, the background for them, the areas in them that are likely to be affected by their player's characters. This product will help ease the burden it is a campaign world. And it gives you a little bit about the Triangle campaign. It includes 4 of these, each involve a different major power in some way. The scope of the plots are vast within the action occurring over a 1-year span of the game time, and the backgrounds for them are going to back 30, 40 years from the present. First part is Merchant of Death, A Dose of Revenge, A Family Affair, and The Corporate Grasp. Merchant of Death is a plot dealing with the Romulans. A Romulan intelligence operative set up in the Triangle and acts as a conduit for disinformation to Starfleet intelligence. A Dose of Revenge deals with the Klingons. A former Thought Admiral, Kador, once in line for the Imperial throne, is a fugitive from Imperial forces. He has grand designs, including precipitating total war between the 3 major empires, with himself picking up the pieces. The only weapons are his extraordinary intellect, his driving ambition and thirst for revenge, and several willing accomplices, and a potent mind control drug, right? Family Affair deals with the Orions. Successful Triangle privateer named Razad has hopes that united first of all Triangle Orions into a confederation with himself at the head. Grasp deals with a Terran-based corporation. BioResearch is totally immoral organization determined to show a profit no matter what, no matter the cost of those whom it interacts. Thuggery, muggery, buggery, skullduggery. No act is too base as long as it brings in the catch. These plots are not adventures, rather they are stories that can spawn adventures. It's assumed that the player characters will be working for Starfleet intelligence, gathering information. That's an interesting thing there, because I've noticed a thread through a lot of the adventures for Star Trek FASA deals with being either ship captain or crew or Starfleet operatives, right? The assumption is that you're going to be somehow or another tied into that particular stuff. But we know through the Klingons and the Orion source books and playbooks that you can participate in many, many, many more categories. And we also have merchant princes and you know what I'm talking about because I did a review on it. So there's a lot of other avenues for playing in the Star Trek universe. But early on, this was a common theme that kind of turned off a few people because they didn't see the wider opportunities and options for play in this environment. It's Star Trek. It's Star Wars. Star Trek is not Star Wars, and Star Wars is not Star Trek. I mean, it is the way the vibe works, right? Different kind of stuff. Context of the books, triangle sector intelligence, information, that you may need if you're going to be an operative, field reports, the reliability ratings from those reports, source reliability ratings, sector intelligence stations, who's in charge of them, in case you need to know who you're talking about. Here's command structure for Starfleet Intelligence Command, sector intelligence. Now that we have a lot more familiarity with Section 31, wouldn't that be another twist as being an agent working for Section 31 with a completely different set of moral or immoral instructions? Senior intelligence staff, background at bio for so on and so forth. So we got some major NPCs for your characters to interact or to answer to or ask questions from. Sector status briefing for the triangle overview at the time. And there's a lot of good stuff in here, a lot of good reading. Talking about case officer breeding, the Bait, the Klingons, the Romulans, the Orions, the Federation citizens within the triangle. Project Black Mange. Following detailed characters provided for game masters. Gamers and game masters who do not wish to create their own characters. These characters have been designed to have the skills essential to interact with all four of the plot lines provided in this supplement. Characters designed by the players and the game master should show a similar mix of skills. So if you don't choose to play one of these ready-made characters, you use these as a template so your characters are at least equipped with what they believe is necessary to succeed playing in a James Bond-esque commando kind of scenario, depending on how you look at it. Of course, the general commercial light freighter. But your players will be assigned, it is a Type Q research vessel specifically built for Starfleet. Other than it's faster than the standard freighter of its class. It also has a built-in weapon system that's designed so it's next to the sensor suite or something, so it's very difficult to spot unless you fire it up. So we got our blueprints level by level. Merchant of Death plot synopsis. Romulan culture is well organized and strict. Children born into the society are dedicated to aiding the race to build the road to the stars, and any activity not dedicated to this goal is shunned. Efficient use of the limited resources of the Romulan homeworld is required, and thus the resources include both living and non-living. Thus it is against Romulan philosophy to waste a piece of paper or a life. It is equally against their philosophy to waste resources on a project or a person seen to be less than productive. From this attitude comes the practice of infant enthusiasm, knocking off your infants' asthma to many members of the Federation. So if there's something defective, if you're born with a birth defect, the Romulans have no problem with eliminating you because they're not going to let you be a drain on their society. So the process of incalculating loyalty to the race is started at birth, extends up through the first 25 years of life. First 5 years of those lives, a Romulan child found defective during any one of this. It just goes on with that. Basic information, Merchant of Death, cast of characters. Let's go back a moment. I don't want to read the entire thing, but So during the Rathana 5 years of the Great Service, she gravitated to the intelligence section of each division. Reports on her behavior and attitude showed her not to be of the finest quality of physical, mental, and moral attributes, and so she was marked for higher rank. Soon after these tours were completed, she was recruited by Commander Darkus to become a deep cover agent for Romulan intelligence. Although the initial idea of becoming a voluntary outcast was shocking, once the magnitude of the project was explained to her, she accepted, seeing it to be her road to the stars for her race. After a thorough training with Romulan intelligence, she became an outcast, quote, escaping to the safety of the Triangle. In reality, her assignment, she has opened a luxury of peril, a small trading firm dealing with rare and hard to get items. She has made contact with illicit arms dealers in which trade she has become important. So trying to figure out what it is we're supposed to accomplish in this mission. Apparently, you try to uncover an arms dealer. That's what she's doing. She's purchasing weapons and selling them to, either purchasing them for the Romulans or using them to sell to gather more information and credits to utilize for the intelligence people. Excuse me a second. It said rich environment, but you gotta, as the GM, you really have to put the motivations in there for what's going on, I think. Timeline of events. Said move transfer different range to Starfleet Intelligence, Occupy UFP, Romulan military editions, Commander Darkus recruits Rathona to become a voluntary outcast. He becomes an operative for military intelligence. She then attends training sessions. A year later, she gives birth at the same time to Cardis purloins a child with a minor birth defect, switching the child marked for extermination with Rathana's daughter. Records show the child had disease left Rathana's child damage. It's kind of a messed up adventure. Move on. Background information, planet encounters, hits on play. Now we got the next one, the Dose of Revenge. This one makes more sense. Basically, a Klingon High General or Admiral is tried to do a coup and he's failed and he ran with us. He has a serum that can be a thought control serum introduced to people to make them follow his commands or follow his view of how things should go. And you're trying to, as the Starfleet intelligence operatives, you're trying to unmask what's going on here, while the Star Trek has the Klingons have a fleet that's in the Triangle hunting this guy down and his associates down to try to eliminate him. There's a lot of information here, some of it not so helpful. And we got our stats for the various NPCs and our characters potentially. So ideally, you could come in and you could roleplay the Klingon side of this, try to help the Admiral achieve his goals and take over the Klingon Empire with this guy in charge. So you wouldn't have to be from a Federation perspective or a Federation intelligence perspective. Timeline of events. I think they take over a independent research facility that was funded and established by Starfleet's medical research division or something, and they force the scientists working there to fabricate this thought control serum with the intentions of using it in a large scale scenario, starting with feeding it to a fairly large population of Klingons. So he's looking for a planet with a population and then through careful manipulation and his charisma, gain enough military resources and people to go back to the the Klingon Empire and take over. You know, the ripple effect, plan encounters, the hook, the dying, background information, computer search, Starfleet intelligence rating. Here, source support the fleet. It's just various bits and pieces of stuff. Hints on play. Says the plot has 5 distinct vectors. Krator's plan to carve out an empire. 2. Vostok's plan to make credit and regain control of his base and operations. 3. Romder's quest to find and capture the Klingon responsible for the destruction of his family. 4. Kunu's desire to capture Krator and return him to the Emperor before the Emperor becomes impatient, puts Krator's sentence on Kunu. And 5. Cretan's dreams of getting back in the saddle again by rendezvousing with his nephew and then going on a campaign of conquest. Player characters enter the area. They're bound to stumble on evidence of several of the vectors by direct observation or evidence or by secondhand reports. However, all such evidence is viewed by the perspective of whichever vector is currently under investigation. Furthermore, rumors and speculation have a tendency to confuse perceptions of the big picture. It should take a while before the players realize each of the vectors intersect at Krator. The game master should lay facts out in front of the players at appropriate times, but should not confirm or deny any of these speculations as to what's going on. He should let them jump to their own conclusions and pursue them as they will, using rumors. Whenever the opportunity arises, the game master should tend to tantalize the players with partially accurate rumors from locals. They give some examples. Then we got number 3 is a plot. Synopsis is a family affair. Concepts of peace and war are difficult to grasp. We say that that we are in a time of one only because the other does not exist at the time. Humans, being simple-minded race, like definition in their lives, thus want to be on a clearly defined state of one or the other. Fortunately, this is not always possible or desirable. For a very short period of time in Terran history, it was possible to say the country. Okay, just basically going on and on about the Orions, war and peace. There's no such thing as we're either in a peace state or we're in a war state. As far as they're concerned, there's profit and there's always conflict. It's just various layers of conflict, and it's either outright conflict or under the table scenario. There's always peace, even in a time of conflict. There's plenty of peace going on, and plenty of place to make money. And the guy's goal is to bring together some different groups of Orions in the triangle to form this new Orion syndicate, and with him in charge. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. And the Starfleet intelligence officers get wind of this and try to either interfere to prevent it or to get control of this guy so they can benefit with keeping an eye on him and making sure he isn't causing mischief for the Federation. So we got our star date. I'll admit different things about what's taking place up to the point of the adventure for the players. Or you could potentially start your players at some point early into this and use this as a guide for figuring out how your encounters should go. The ripple effect. So it's here, day 6, Starfleet intelligence briefing. The organizing of an Orion Confederation is viewed by Starfleet with some misgivings. Although we take no active interest in the triangle and its affairs, it is the feeling of the intelligence analysts that the organization is a strong paramilitary force by members of a client race can only lead to future problems. Rizad is said to have ambitions beyond the triangle itself, perhaps even his home star systems. And we got some news, facts, more stuff to feed to the players to help push things along. Planned encounters, the courteous exchange where you meet with the guy and talk to him. The runaway, somebody's running from his organization. Background information, hints on play. A family affair will be a difficult plot for the players to solve. Mentally, the security around Razad will be quite strong after his unification of the Triangle Orions. It will be difficult for anyone of hostile intent to get very close. The more time the player characters dither, the more difficult it will be for them to make a difference. After the interaction with Drago, after exfilling Scott's death, it will be almost impossible. The plot allows the player characters to sneak around on Orion worlds, gaining knowledge about the Confederation movements. The Game Master chooses the player characters could be agents sending the intelligence reports home to Starfleet. In this case, the nefarious actions and Orion's loyalty to Razad should be emphasized. There should be any number of actual resistance fighters, etc., etc. If the Game Master chooses this option, the event's detailed intelligence report should be used as a basis for adventures and first-hand experiences for player characters. And then plot synopsis number 4, the corporate grasp. Pretty much it is a Federation-based independent company that has no qualms about doing anything to make money, to sell things, and to do whatever it takes, whether it's the outright, criminal engagements or immoral engagements, or unethical engagements, anything to make money. And that's pretty much how this one works out. Federation intelligence has got wind of it and are trying to shut it down. So it's not too overly complex. This one, of the 4, this one I understand the most. The deal with the Klingon adventure, I understood that one fairly straightforward too. The other 2, the Orions, is a little trickier. A lot more backstabbing, manipulating stuff, and the Romulan one was kind of twisted. It's something about trying to find these missing kids and what they were trying to use them for or something. Games including the plots, player preparation, computer searches, the bait and hook, equipping the characters, ripple effect from plots. Ideally, the concept was you begin with the first plot, and there are repercussions based on the actions of the players that can ripple into the next plot, and then the next, and so on and so forth. So it would change significantly how the next plot would occur because something was butting up against it or interfering with it. So it behooves the GM, if you do use this one and you play it, to go and really read it a couple times and give yourself a chance to analyze it before making the decision what you're going to do. So thank you for joining me. Look for our next installment. The Price is Right. Game on.